podcast through Beauty for Ashes and In Her Image. We've been talking a lot about becoming greater than we've ever seen ourselves before. We've been dissecting the book of Esther with Her Image. We've been having really good chats as women in She Talks. And so today is like a really big blessing to be able to connect with this lady. Does anybody have any questions so far concerning power? I already have a question from somebody, and their question is, what, sorry, let me read the question again so I don't get it wrong. Yeah, so the question is, how do you feel powerful even when submitting to a man? Which I thought was a really good question. Does anyone else have a question?
How do you feel, how do you walk with a powerful stance when you don't see it in yourself?
Good question. How do you walk with a powerful... I'm writing these down just in case you guys forget to ask the questions. But don't forget to ask your questions, okay? How do you walk with power? Can you repeat your question for me, please? How do you
walk with a powerful stance? So how do you walk in, how do you walk with a powerful stance when you haven't seen it in yourself?
When you haven't seen it in yourself. Okay, good question. I'll be asking questions about what's inspired her to write this book, the power of being a woman. I'll be asking her to tell us some of those powers. What are some of those powers that we have as women? I know she probably won't want to give too much of her book away, but hopefully we can get as much information as possible.
Yeah, that'd be
Are there any other questions? Chrissy, what do you want to know about being powerful as a woman? Miss Motun Rayo Ogundari.
Oh, pardon?
What would you like to know about being a powerful woman? Or about power in general? Or about women in general?
Everything there is to know. I'm not particular about a certain thing.
Well, hopefully something today.
Yeah, I just want to know what there is to know. Like, just add on to what I have, or how I can enhance my life or myself or my attitude and stuff like that, just to become a better person. So I just want to acquire the knowledge, to be honest, and see how I can apply that to my day-to-day life. And that's
awesome.
About it for me.
I hear you, girl.
I just want to learn.
Oh, don't we
probably
all?
Discover some hidden powers or hidden talent that I have that might be of use. So I just want to know.
Yeah, actually. It's actually something that gives us all peace when we can find out, when we are able to even identify those new things in us. So I hope you find that this evening. I hope you get that.
I just thought about something. Those of us that have daughters, how do we exhibit power without it resembling pride or arrogance or being overly independent? I think there's a fine line, which just being
Mm-hmm.
in the right way.
Our towards
Mm.
our daughters.
Those that have got daughters.
Those of us that have daughters.
Those of you that have got daughters.
Those of us that have 3 daughters.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's a valid question.
Yeah. Because you always
Most of
want
us
to
are
set the
daughters.
example, don't you, for your, for your daughters especially, because you know that they're soaking it all up, they're watching you, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to do anything that's going to make them feel inferior or overly superior, or it sometimes is feels a little bit of it puts a little bit of pressure on you on
Mm-hmm.
what not to do, because you know you've got little eyes watching you.
Yeah, yeah, and they tend to copy the worst, the bit you didn't want them to copy.
Yes, they do. Even if they
They
didn't see it or hear it, it's almost like they just know that's a trait that mum might have, or
attracted to sin, right?
Mm.
Attracted. But that's all of us that's all of us, men, women, that's everybody. So I like that question. I like that. And I think on the other side, for me, would be as a daughter, how do I, how do, as a daughter, you're kind of limited in how much power you can have underneath your mother. So how do you behave under a mother that may not even be leading you the correct way? How, as a daughter, how do you now combat that and still be respectful at the same time, that may not even be leading you? Yeah. Sorry, I just heard.
I think you've got a message in the chat from Maria, and she's got a question that she's written. Do you want me to read it out?
Okay, so yeah, how to exercise power without becoming prideful. Yeah, power and pride are so hand in hand. They're so hand in hand. Don't you think this is probably the reason why people are scared for women to be leaders of the world, like presidents and things like that? Yeah, why do you think it's hard for us to be in these positions? And not get the pride. Why does the pride always come in? Why? What do you think, Maria?
I'm too scared of pride, because I know that's why Satan was thrown out of heaven in the first place. But in my thinking anyway. But it's that thing, like you don't wanna how do you say, you don't wanna step down. Sometimes you're right. Let's say you have a daughter, yeah, and you want to exercise that power over her, but sometimes, even though she might be right, but you have that sense of pride that is not allowing you to step down for her, kind of way. Do you know what I mean? Like, for instance, it's time for them to fly off, off the nest, but at the same time you're so proud, like you don't want her to go, kind of thing, don't want to let go. Do you know what I mean? In that sense, So how do you exercise your power over your children and say, put your feet down, without becoming prideful, I suppose.
I wonder what the fear is. I wonder what I'm not a mother yet, so I don't really understand all the sides of it. But I wonder what, obviously as a daughter, I've definitely ran into times where there's a battle of the queens. And most people usually say to me, well, when you run your own home, then you can be queen. But until then, you're in your mom's house.
But is that not pride? Is that not pride in itself? Like, you're raising a queen, so she has to be a queen. At the same time. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. It is a strange kind of, like you said, it's a very thin line for me in that sense. I think the fear of her going into the world and making the same mistakes, even though I have that certainty that, okay, I raised her to the best of my ability and God helped. But still the world is out there. So you want to shelter them from the world, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, you know, so you don't want to let go. I don't know how to explain it. So it is something that I would like the more experienced women, perhaps those who already had children that left home, how to deal with that, you know. Like whenever she comes home, I think I'm too proud to say, I missed you, I need you kind of way, you know, and I want to get out of that. You know, it's hard for me to say, you know, without making her feel guilty at the same time as well.
100% agree. I really hear you. I feel you. I wonder if part of that pride is this thing of, you know, when we can overcome a big obstacle, and we've now learnt a lesson to the stage we can now teach the lesson. You kind of have that sense of, I know how this is going. You can't tell me anything. I'm here to teach you. I've been through it, done that. So if anything, it's almost like pride. I don't even know what the word is, but just just believing that it's only you that could have possibly learned something just because you've been through it already, and sometimes not trusting that your child is strong enough to overcome things too, and not trusting that some of the hurdles your daughters may face, or your daughters or your sons may face, are sometimes to shape them into who they're supposed to be. So some issues are necessary that they go through. Some things are a thing, and sometimes I can see how a lot of my mistakes have shaped me. Had my mum had protected me from those mistakes, I don't think I'd be the woman I am today. Which is obviously her heart's desire to protect me from these different things, but God knew better, and God knows better. So hopefully us as women, and even me when I have a child, I'll keep this in mind. And that will help some of the pride, but pride, it's in us all. Someone's just wrote in the chat. Becca, oh, okay, yeah. So someone's saying that they think culture has a lot to do with it. They allow culture to take over, and pride sneaks in unexpectedly. I love that you said that, Rebecca. The unexpectedly, because I don't think any one of us women ever planned to be that type of mother or woman, but we find ourselves there. Do you want to elaborate more on that, Rebecca?
Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. As I was saying, yeah, no, I agree with you. No mother wants to be prideful towards their children. And they also have, let's say, their parents also watching them and also giving them their opinions on how they should raise their kid, etc., and them not wanting to disappoint their parents and cultural things and stuff like that. So when it happens, they don't really recognize or notice that they're being prideful, unless, let's say, they take time to sit down and actually reflect what happened. That's when they will actually notice, oh, wait a minute, I allowed culture to take over, and then pride started to kick in. But then again, as a mother, I say, I'm speaking from experience of how my mother treats me. Unless your parents actually sit down and reflect, they won't actually notice that that's happened. If you know what I'm trying to say. So I think that's what I can say.
I hear you. So do you think as children or I should say, who has the responsibility of telling a parent your pride is a bit too big? Who has that responsibility? How will a parent even identify that? Some of you are parents. Who are you expecting to go? Or who are you willing to hear that correction from? Who are you willing to hear that from? Let's see who's a mother on here. Cindy. If you can hear me, Cindy. Okay, I'll move on to the next person, Sophia. Sophia, if you can hear me, say hello, girl. No? Okay. It's getting pretty quiet in here. Lorraine, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, yeah.
Hello.
Hi. Hopefully you're okay. You're good, sis?
I'm very well, thank you. Apologies if you hear me going and coming. I'm trying to sort dinner out, so pardon me.
Oh, listen, this is the power of being a woman. You can be here all at once and do it all greatly as well.
I don't know about that. Sorry, what was your question again?
So my question was, who are you willing to hear correction from about your parenting? We spoke about times where different things have influenced mothers to sometimes do parent in the wrong way, or put parent in a way that might not be effective. But Rebecca just mentioned a time that, or she suggested the time that of being able to speak to, or allowing your parents to know that actually they're not speaking to you correctly or whatever it is. So I was asking you, who is it for you that you are willing to hear correction from? Not everyone is happy to hear their child come and tell them, Mum, don't talk to me like that. Some people prefer if it was their spouse or whatever. So for you?
Personally, I don't mind who would say it or who it's coming from, because we live in a world where everybody has an opinion and everyone is entitled to one.
Right.
I think the most important thing is how it comes across and who we're talking to. So for me, the fact that I'm a mother and maybe I've advanced in life doesn't mean that somebody who is behind me won't be able to correct me in certain things. So it doesn't matter who it's coming from. I think it's how they're willing to say it, when they say it. So timing is a big factor. How it is said is a very big factor as well, and who it is said to. I think for me, that is what it is. So being it my child, being it my little girl at school, at church, at work, It doesn't matter because we all have different life experiences and they all collectively together come together as something good. So I don't know it all, and definitely would anybody, but I think it depends on the timing and how it's said. For me, I think that's the most important thing.
Mhm. Mhm. So with your children, if so with your children, you would give them this opportunity to respectfully tell you how you can make your relationship better every given chance. That's really great. Is
Yeah,
there
absolutely.
anything else? That's really good.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say absolutely yes, because for me, well, personally, I want to believe that I'm in between an African and a British mother. So there's times that my African thing will switch on, and there's times that I'll let I'll let a diplomatic part switch on as well. But like Rebecca said, sometimes I think we need to be aware of what we're saying, and we shouldn't think we're right all the time. And I think for me, that will demonstrate to that child, knowing that, you know what, if my mother is willing to listen to me, it makes me feel important. It makes me feel as a person. Therefore, it builds that confidence slowly but surely in that child as they grow up.
It's very beneficial to them, and they'll be blessed later
Definitely.
on for that type of freedom.
Definitely. But don't get me wrong, I do still have the times that I go, no, I'm right, you're wrong.
Don't. You know what? We're still human. We're trying, and we are getting better every day. Getting better. Oh, okay, guys. The time we have all been waiting for has come. We do have Michelle McKinney Hammond online now, and we do have Tega as well. Thank you both for joining us. Hello.
Hi, hello. Is she on?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hi, sorry, I'm on the road. Pastor Michelle will be joining shortly. I think she's on already, but if she's not on, I'm coordinating with her, and she'll be joining shortly. I'm so sorry for all the delays. That's been on set. So
We're right on
I'm
time.
trying to be joining shortly. Thank you. Sorry, I'm on the road.
It's
Hello.
okay. It's so well. We're glad that you're here, and we are very prepared for you, but you're prepared, aren't we, ladies? Hello. Let's
Yes,
see.
we're blessed.
Hello, Michelle.
Hi. Sorry, one
Hello,
second.
you got it. You just relax.
I'm on a I'm on set actually, and so I've broken off to do this with you.
Girl, it's such a blessing, and I'm so happy. We haven't even had a chance to talk before this, so we are all meeting you for the first time.
Can you hold one moment so I can answer something? Okay, great.
Okay, guys. Yeah, so do you know what? We have just been speaking a lot about pride, and so hopefully we can ask some questions about that and lives without. And thank you, Maria, for sharing that, and Rebecca and Tilly. I do want to bring to our attention that we do have guys here as well. We do have Nana, the organizer of this, and we have Kelvin, and they are both representing men as best as they can. They too will be asking questions, okay, to because we want to also the men too. So we do have two people, two men here to elect them. How was your day?
Well, I've been shooting all day. It's been a long day. I'm doing a series for DSTV, and so that's been my day.
We need to. You need to tell me what this series is. We want to catch on. Don't leave us out.
I don't even know when it starts. I was called to film starting 2 days ago. It's called Dede. And I guess it's going to be a quite lengthy series that will be running on DSTV.
Okay. So many of us can all access it. You heard it. You heard it here first, ladies. You heard it here.
Exactly.
Well, you are looking absolutely beautiful as always.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just can't believe I'm speaking to you. I am honored, and lots of us are. We have been hearing about you, reading about you, watching videos. And last year, Lead Me, we were blessed to have you on for Lead Me. So many of us were inspired by your speech. You made me want to be so much more, if that makes sense.
Praise God. I'm glad. You are already more, you know, you just now have to realize it and embrace it.
You're already preaching. That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, thank you. So everybody, me and you are not alone on here. I have all my friends here, and that we are all ready to ask lots of questions.
Oh, good. I love questions.
Yeah, we have lots. We have lots.
Okay.
And so I'm going to go ahead and ask the first question. Can you tell us all what made you write this book? I feel like I've seen that you've done this book before. What made you do it all again and do it this way?
Well, I felt that it was an important conversation to have again, especially since we were all declaring it the year of the woman, and women, especially in government, in high places, were being highlighted. More women were stepping into leadership positions around the world, corporately and governmentally. Even my cousin became the Prime Minister of Barbados last year. So I felt that it was time to revisit our power as women so that we use it well and not abuse it, because we all know about power that's been abused. So it's important for us to understand as women what God's original design is for us, what his intentions were on how we were to use the power that he gave us, and for us to understand that we are powerful, because the world sends a different message that makes us, I think, act out a bit. And sometimes handle the power that we do have inappropriately in order to prove otherwise. And when we understand and embrace and celebrate that we are intrinsically powerful and embrace our femininity and the part that plays in our power role, we come off more effective and more victorious. So I felt that it was an important conversation to revisit at this time.
And it was, it is. Many of us women who are just starting to be used by the Lord happen to have been speaking on these very topics. So you're definitely in the spirit, girl. You're in the spirit. Do you know what? That actually leads me on to my next question, which is, what made you know that this is your ministry, this is your calling? You could be writing about anything, really, but what makes you write about things like this?
Well, it's the conversation that I always hear. It's what I'm most passionate about. It's where I find my flow. And I think that it's important for people to know that the thing that lights them up, that makes them angry, that makes them sad, that makes them say somebody should do something about that. That's usually the area that you've been called to. So that's the biggest hint. Also, just in the course of my ministry, I've spoken at hundreds of women's conferences all over the world. And I get pulled on a lot for those types of topics. So obviously that's what I'm called to, because that's where the door is open.
Oh wow, 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 wow. It's very true. It's I like that you said that usually if you find yourself finding a problem in something, that's usually what you're called to. I really like that you said that. That there is purpose in our madness. There's purpose. It gives us a different perspective as we look at things that usually anger us or usually trouble us. It really brings a light to that. So you mentioned something to do with us having power and making sure we don't abuse it, and I love that you have written to address that. That's actually something we've actually been speaking about just before you came on. Somebody mentioned, I'll just read it to you. They said, how do we exercise power without becoming prideful?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, we can't be prideful about something that we don't have. Our power comes through Christ at work in us. It's not actually our power, not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. So understanding the source of power that we've been entrusted to utilize, okay, keeps pride out of the equation, because we realize in and of ourselves, if you think about it, we all struggle with feelings of not being enough. And the way to settle that issue is to receive the fact that, yeah, you're right, you're not enough on your own. But that's when God begins to work at you in our weakness. He's made strong. And so there's no pride for us to grasp onto in that sense, because we're not the source. We are the resource of God's power.
I like that. We are not the source. We are just the resource of God's power. Wow, that's amazing. That's powerful. And yeah, you're right. Somebody actually mentioned sometimes when we don't exercise power correctly, it really causes our relationship on even our daughters be strained. So we do have a few mothers on here, and some of us who are praying to be one day. Do you have any advice for mothers when it comes to power, pride, power and pride, and being a mother?
Well, I think it's important for mothers to know how powerful they are and to put that power in perspective, because they have literally been entrusted to steward something that God has given to them on loan. Their children don't really belong to them. They are placed with them to be stewarded by them. God has chosen you especially and entrusted you with a task of locating the gifts in that little life, nurturing them to greatness, and then releasing them into their destiny. And the release part is very important, because as mothers, sometimes we get a little attached and we don't want to let go. But when we have the mind like Mary did, who was told she was going to raise the Son of God, there came a point in time when Mary had to release Jesus to do his ministry, to watch him die on the cross. But she had put everything in him that she could. And so our power lies in the instruction we give and our ability to nurture lives, the ability to speak life into them, speak vision into them, locate their giftings, empower them, and encourage them to use those things so that what we've been stewarded with grows and becomes fruitful. And that's a legacy that we get to leave behind long after we're gone. The life that we nurtured has turned into that person's nature that does something great.
That's very good. I like that. We do have a lady called Danny on here, and she has a question for you. And hopefully I can get her question up. Okay, so her question was, how do you walk with a powerful stance when you haven't seen it in yourself? And you do not see yourself as powerful, but people are telling you you are. How do you walk? How do you do this?
You just do you. You know, power is not what we do, it's who we are. And that's going to be interpreted differently by the different people that we encounter. So it's not something that you should always be aware of and turning the switch on and off. No, you are just yourself. And in that, you are intrinsically and organically powerful. You will affect who you're supposed to affect, who God has assigned you to affect. And most of the time, you won't know that you were affecting people. And I think God does it that way on purpose, so our egos don't get involved. So just keep doing you and allow your light to shine so that men see God through you.
Wow. Wow. I like that, because we are made to be light. And there's something about you walking correctly that makes you attractive, right? It makes
Exactly.
come close to your light, and they want to share that light. So I 100% agree, which leads me to my next question. Girl, what makes us powerful as women? Do you want to tell us, give us the lowdown? What makes us powerful as women? Because I don't always understand the powers I have. I don't. Sometimes it's my partner that has to tell me, you don't even understand the power you have. And so I want to ask you, what are the powers that we hold as women?
Well, there are inherent gifts that God has placed inside of us. One of our gifts is the spirit of discernment and prudence and you know, just being able to read between the lines. Then also, a huge one is our intuition, our sense of knowing. That's just something that women have. It's like in our wiring, it's in our DNA. And probably our greatest gift is the power of influence. You know, influence, we complain a lot about authority and why are we supposed to submit to men, when the broader stroke is that everyone is called to submit one to the other. But God has set up an order in the home to lead to a team that works successfully together. So submission is not ever a passive act. It's an aggressive decision to be in cooperation with your partner, with the person that you're working with, whoever's in authority in your life. Now, that being said, what a woman has to understand is that her gift of influence is far more powerful than that man's gift of authority. Because God is the ultimate authority, but our hearts influence us to sin. So we don't always listen to God. Influence is actually more powerful than authority. When we talk about politics and we talk about things that people want to make into law, there are some things that can't be made into law because they're not legislation issues, they're heart condition issues. And the heart is the seat of influence. So, well, I go into more of these things in my book, of course, but that's the short story of it.
Oh, wow. Do you know what? As I'm speaking to you, I'm feeling powerful. I'm feeling like, yes, I influence you. I like
That's
that.
right. And
I
just
like
think
that.
about it this way. No one on the face of the earth got here except through the womb of a woman. So without women, there would be no life. Yes, the man has the seed, but it's the woman that incubates, carries, and births that thing into being. So we're pretty powerful.
We are. I started a group called Beauty for Ashes, and this group was based on basically my experience as a Christian. I think I've had one of those walks where everything that's shameful always happens in the eyes of everyone. And usually people always see it, and they can see my journey. My journey is out there. It's not for some reason, God is not doing his molding in a quiet place. He's doing his molding with me out there in the open, which can be, which for a time, for a time, it was quite crippling. Makes you feel embarrassed about yourself, or down on yourself. Not even like, or yeah, you don't realize the power that you have within you. Until you change your mindset, or until you change your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Mentioned in earlier. So there is a guy in here called Kelvin. He is here, and he did ask a question, which is about power and being a woman and being under a man, which you've kind of touched on. And so that's some of the issues I used to face earlier on in life. So what would you say is ways to help women know that submission does not make them powerless? Submission does not make them powerless.
Well, that's understanding that submission is not about being a doormat. It's about putting you in position to be blessed. When you submit to God, you get blessed. When you submit to your boss at work, you get a paycheck. That's a blessing. So you know, submission is teamwork. It's cooperation. It is walking hand in hand with your partner. A real team masters submission. Every person has their role, and they play their role, and they don't try to get in someone else's lane. If you watch football or you watch basketball, I'm more of a basketball person, you don't see the guard being upset about not being a forward and the forward being upset about not being a guard. They each understand their strengths, what they bring to the party, and why they're in the role that they're in, so that when they play the game, they know the order of the game, and they're able to cooperate between themselves to win the game because of those roles. They don't see the roles as a hindrance. Verification that creates order, that gives them the power to win the game.
That's powerful. And with every game, it wasn't just that day they started to work out. It wasn't that day that they started to play that game or anything like that. There was a lot of coaching, practice, and feeding themselves and feeding their minds, and just training their mind, their mental, to be ready for that game. Mm-hmm. So what would you say is your way of, what's your personal way, anything that you do that helps you be this wonderful lady that you have become today? What was the journey? What do you do every day? Yeah.
What do I do every day? Well, no day is the same, but the one thing that is the common denominator is me keeping in touch with God, always having my ear open to his direction, constantly pondering and meditating on his word, constantly walking in accountability and transparency with like-minded people who are also striving to be what God has created them to be. Those are my benchmarks. Those are the cornerstone of everything else that I do. Nothing else functions outside of that. So today I might be on set acting. The next day I might be, doing another job. I might be on my computer writing a book. I might be in the studio singing or songwriting. Whatever I'm doing, I am focused on looking more like God, relaying what God has placed inside of me to relay to the world. And I hope that's powerful. I don't think I focus on being powerful. I just focus on being obedient.
That is powerful, and I'll tell you why it's powerful. Go. So there was something that was told to me when I was quite small, and that if I'm not careful, I'll be jack of all trades, but master of none.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I guess if you're a creative person, you can usually do more than one thing sometimes.
Sure.
And each thing brings this great passion. Like, you're equally as passionate for acting than you are for singing, that you are for theater. and you can never drop one. You can't focus on one thing and drop one thing. So what message do you have to women who you think, for some of us who feel like we're starting a lot of things, but we're not really finishing, nothing is ever complete. So it makes you feel like, I don't see what I've accomplished. I'm doing all the things I love, yes, but I have not actually reached the ultimate in any of these things. What's your encouragement?
Well, I would say to recognize that there are different seasons in life. Can you have everything? You can, but not at all at the same time. So what you do have to pray about is, what are the priorities and how do I organically shift to the next thing? Being sensitive to when the seasons change and the cues are there for the door to be open for yet another expression of who you are. So for, I haven't written books for several years now because God had me focusing on my music ministry. I was still writing, but in a different genre. I've started acting. And it always, when God is your manager, he actually takes care of your schedule. So it's a time when there's been a lull in me speaking and being able to go out and speak in parts of the world that I've been called to do several shows. So I just kind of go with the flow and I say, okay, handle it, God. You just point and I'll follow where you're pointing.
I like that. That's something that's very encouraging for me to hear, and hopefully for the rest of the people on here to hear. So I don't want to be the only one talking, asking questions. No, some people on here do have questions for you. So I want to open up the floor for a little while to people. And hopefully, if you have any questions, please do share.
While you're looking for questions, I'd like to say people should log on to michellehammond.com for my website, and you can get on the mailing list so that you know when I'm doing free seminars and different things on relationships and hangouts and book releases and all sorts of things. So michellehammond.com, and I also have a YouTube channel, Michelle McKinney Hammond, so that you can see lots of my messages and teaching on there as well.
So it says, how have you in this time coped with the changes? Like you said, seasons, we're always in different seasons, and many of us have been watching you for years, and we know that it's not always been like this. So how has this time, this pandemic, this new way of being light, how has it increased your power? How has it changed your how has it changed you?
Well, it changed a lot of my habits, spiritually and physically, for the better. But I would also say that what it did was it pushed me out of my comfort zone. And I consider that a gift, actually, because it made me reinvent. It made me reinvest in different areas of the gifts that I'd been given and find new ways to express those things and new ways to reach people and tap into their needs and be able to still serve them digitally. Whereas, when I was flowing and getting on a plane and running everywhere to speak, hey, that was it. I didn't think about anything else. So it made me have to reinvent. And that's always a good thing.
You probably learned so much more new things about yourself in this time. So anybody else on here, have you got any questions? You got any questions? I'll also check my Facebook Live, see if there are any questions on there. What would you say was your most favorite part of your book? Which bits do you have a section of your book?
Hmm. I never thought about it actually. I write a lot of poems in the book, which you can get on Amazon, by the way,
Nice.
Kindle.
Yeah.
But I think that I love writing poetry. So for me, it was great to find a poetic expression for the themes that I was writing about. You know, I talked about sisterhood, the importance of friendship, and women understanding the power they have as friends and sisters. I talked about motherhood. I talked about women in leadership. I talked about balancing life. I talked about submission, um, secrets to a man's heart, which I'm not going to give away here. They have to get the book. Uh, but probably I like talking about the Proverbs 31 woman because she mastered life. And I think that that's something that a lot of women struggle with. Mastering all the different facets of all the things they do, the pressure to be all things to all people all the time, and yet we cannot be. And God wouldn't even allow us to be if we could, because that would circumvent him and his place in our hearts. So basically, I would say that I just loved painting. That's, for me, when I'm writing, it's like painting. All the different layers and seeing all the facets of womanhood unfold and celebrating that. You know, the teacher becomes the student when they're writing. So for me, I'm always learning when I'm writing.
So what's out of all your books, actually, what was the challenge? Because I want us to get real. What were the challenges that what challenges did you face preparing for this book? Yeah, what challenges you face, just to encourage some of the ladies on here who are stepping out and they want to do something that maybe they used to do a long time ago and something's pulling them to start again. Yeah, let's talk about the challenges that we may face.
Know if I had any challenges. I mean, when I decided that I wanted to re-release the book, my publisher actually didn't want to re-release the book. They were planning on doing it in 2022. And I said, well, the conversation is now. I don't know what people are going to be talking about in 2022. We went back and forth and up and down. And finally, I said, well, listen, if you're not going to do anything, I would appreciate it if you've given me my book back, and I will self-publish it because I feel it's an important conversation for now. And they very graciously did that. They still have tons of my other books. So, you know, they didn't feel a loss, and they wanted to encourage me because they've been, you know, a great publisher to me, and they feel like family. And so I was happy that they were willing to support me in that quest because they understood that I was passionate about it.
Good. It's good that God provides for whichever vision.
Hi, am I allowed to ask a question, please?
Of course. Go ahead, Lorraine. Hello? Oh, I can't hear you, Lorraine.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Go back.
Hi, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Sorry, can I ask a question, please?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, Michelle.
Hi.
It's such a pleasure to see you, talking to you. I mean, to me, you're a star. You're an amazing woman. So to talk to you, yeah, I'm talking to a celebrity. I'm very fond of you. I love the things you do. And I just want to ask a question. I know you've done so many things, and from all that you're saying from your books and the various experiences, I don't know if you've happened in your journey come across where you really want to do something, but you feel there's something, well, maybe not everyone in that journey seem to be supporting that. And there's a very big part of you that is saying, stop, you can't do it anymore. It's you've done your part. So stop and see what God takes you. what would you do, or what have you done in that instance where you've been challenged by someone so much that you feel like, I need to give up and see where God takes me? What would be your advice to give to that person?
Well, I never give up. I'm not a person that gives up. When people challenge me, I go back to God, and I go, what's your take on what was just said? If that passion is still inside of me and I feel compelled to do what I'm doing, I follow it all the way through, because I believe that God is able to say, okay. Sometimes, and I always say this, that it's important to know the difference between what God said and what God is saying. What God said is the long range prophetic word that he gives us about a specific instance. But what he's saying is the day-to-day instructions of how to walk that thing out. And what we've got to get away from is the myth in Christendom that if God said it, it happens overnight. When we read the Bible, we see many instances where promises were given and years passed before the fruition of those things came to place. And God wasn't wasting time. He was deep in process, developing the person to be able to not just attain the vision, but to maintain and sustain it. And so when you understand that, as long as there is peace, and I always say that peace is the Richter scale for everything. If you don't have peace, then you need to check your agenda and why you're doing what you're doing, because God will give you peace if it's him. Even if it looks like an impossible situation, there'll be a peace about it. I mean, think about somebody like Noah that spent years and years and years building a boat for rain that had never come before. But he had peace, and he had a resounding command in the center of his soul that said, yes, you need to build this ship. Regardless of the ridicule and unbelief of others, he did it, and one day he was proven right.
Thank you. Very useful. Thank you very much.
Somebody else has a question about books. They wanted to know, Michelle, how do they know? How do you know when a book is complete? How do you know when it's finished?
Well, I mean, you should know the book about what the completion of the book is before you start the book. That's a whole writer seminar that I'm going to be doing next year. But, I mean, God knows the end from the beginning. So he works backwards. So the point is, when you're writing a book, what is the point of the book? How are you going to make the point? How many points is it going to take to make the main point? So every chapter should be leading to your point, and you should finally make your point. I mean, there are standards in publishing for, how many words a usual a manuscript is, based on if it's a small book or a standard book. So based on that, it depends on what you're writing, why you're writing it, and what your mission is.
Hopefully that person heard that. Thank you. So we do have a few more minutes left. The person said thank you. We do have a few minutes left.
Okay.
Are there any more questions? Your sister.
Can I ask a question, please?
Please feel free to write in the chat as well. Have any
Pardon?
questions? So please feel free to write in the chat as well if you have any questions. But no, you go ahead and speak, girl.
Oh, I'm already starstruck, so I just can't type at the moment. I'm shaking. Nice to meet you, Michelle. And
Hello.
it's such a great privilege to be in this forum, just to have a chat with you one-on-one. And thank you so much for coming online as well. You've been a blessing, and you're still a blessing because you're still very, very relevant. My question is, what is your advice to someone that feels neither powerful nor powerless in day-to-day activities in the ministry, that you feel, yeah, I'm good, but I don't think I'm good enough because of what you come across or the challenges you face, even at work. So what would be your advice for such person that is neither here nor there, that is in between powerful and powerless?
That's interesting. I would say that you've got to define yourself, because if you don't, other people will define you for you. And again, the focus is not on being powerful. It's about being effective in what you do, bearing fruit with your gifts. Are you accomplishing those things? Are you working in excellence? You know, we're all here to make God look good. And through making him look good, then we look good. So the focus, I think, is what can make us feel demeaned. If the focus is, am I being powerful? You'll never be powerful enough. Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and am I doing it well? Am I blessing anyone? And sometimes you don't see those blessings. So again, it's not about claiming credit for a deed done. It's about doing you, doing what you feel God has assigned you to do, doing it well, and letting the chips fall where they may. Sometimes the thank you comes many years later, and you find out that in that moment you were powerful, but you didn't know it. Does that make sense? It's about being purposeful every day, living every day on purpose, and, you know, leaving it to God to commend you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's deep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Good evening. I know that you have written books, you sing, you host. So there's a lot of things that God has used you to do. Has at any point has that been confusing as to when to do what?
Of course.
Yeah. Because I mean,
of course, but as I said earlier, you know, it comes down to really deciding what is the focus, what is relevant for now. Some things don't matter right now, and those things are things that you put on the back burner, and you give your all to the season and the purpose of that season until that season passes and shifts, and you're allowed to organically move to another one of your giftings and totally exploit that. You know, it's a balancing act. But you can usually weigh what is relevant and what you should be doing right now by the response and the open doors. The other things you keep nurturing and simmering until it's time to release those things.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, yeah, go ahead, Dami.
Sorry, no, just linked to that question. I was going to also ask, has there ever been a time where you've kind of felt unsure of whether it was what you were doing was your desire to do it, or was it God's desire to for you to do it at that specific time?
Well, that's a great question too. And of course, I think we all wrestle with these things because we're all human. And I think that the big factor has to be peace once again. If it's something that I'm just feeling like I'm just wrestling in my flesh for, and there's no provision for it, and I'm still just going against the grain, then that's me. You know, God does allow some tests from time to time, but there'll be a peace with it. There'll be a provision for what needs to be done. And when the provision stops, when the brook dries up, then you know it's time to move on.
So it's been sensitive to that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So what if you have been so we know that when you get into a partnership, you are under two lords almost. you're under your God, and you're under your husband, and sometimes God is asking you to do something and your husband is asking you to do something else, and you have to respect them both at the same time. Which is obviously can cause such a great issue between the husband, the wife, and God. Literally. I'm sure there's many issues people face. So what would you say is the way for women to handle submitting to both? And how do you know which one to listen to, or which one do you, how do you know who to be obedient to at that time?
Well, God is not the author of confusion. So that being said, if you feel God is telling you something and your husband's asking you to do something else, then you need to go back in prayer, and he either has to shift your husband's heart, or you need to do what your husband told you to do until God steps in and does something different to release you from that.
Yeah.
Because he's told you to submit to your husband.
Mm.
And God, even though he's the ultimate authority, his word is that you're to submit to your husband. So now you can either have the conversation with your husband and find out why he feels that way, and you feel this, that God is saying this, and see what he's saying. Because sometimes God is using the husband to actually guide you in an area where your flesh might be pulling you into something. Or sometimes he's using him as a timing mechanism. And, you know, when you submit, then you find out exactly what's going on and how it all comes back into alignment.
Are there any other questions, ladies?
That's very true, because the ideal is for you and your husband to be in agreement, and
Yes.
especially you know that you've been called to do something, you'd want your husband to be your cheerleader, you know, to prompt you and to, you know, even walk with you alongside, maybe doing the same thing. But I think when it's not
Yeah.
that scenario, it can sometimes be a bit daunting. But how do you keep your emotions separate from what you know actually God is calling you to do? So how do you separate the two in that scenario?
Well, emotions come from thoughts. So what thoughts are you aligning yourself under when you are responding emotionally? Are they true? Are they right? Are they pure? If they have good report, are they of praise? Are they of excellence? Are they of virtue? Think on these things. So if they're not lining up with what God has told us to think about and ponder on, or it's not lining up with your values and your belief system, then you have to revisit why you're feeling the way you're feeling, because a thought fed your emotion. So there has to be a different thought alignment in order for your emotions to shift to a right place.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think God gave us this level of emotion because clearly we are so different to men. We are so different. Why do you think God has given us this emotion, these types of emotions, or allows us to experience emotions the way we do? What's the power in it?
Well, the power in it is that it works to our benefit. We sense things, we see things, we feel things, we hear things. And a lot of those things are right. And they are they're guidance markers for a man. And a smart man actually relies on that in his wife. A man is very calculating, very bottom line. They see the bottom line in everything, which is good. I always say that the man is the brain of God, and the woman is the heart of God. And as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So a house divided against itself cannot stand. And when the two are in agreement, nothing is impossible to them. So when the heart and the mind line up together and beat to the same rhythm, then the dance begins. So it's very, very critical for us to see that all that we are as women is very powerful, and that God uses all of it.
Yeah, it's true.
That's the key bit. Be all of it.
I caught your live the other day. Well, I saw it on YouTube. It was when you were talking about the power of vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
and we were so blessed by it. And I say we were blessed because we were talking about it in our Bible studies group. And it wasn't until afterwards that I realized how much vulnerability was such a big and sensitive topic amongst women. So to come with the idea that there's actually power in vulnerability, it was almost like an oxymoron. It almost
Yeah.
so comfortable until we really got to the bottom of it. So maybe, do you think you can elaborate a bit more for those that didn't manage to catch that live, the power of vulnerability?
Well, I was talking about submission. So I was talking about the fact that it puts you in the position to be blessed. But also, you know, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And so does the rest of the world. So, you know, when we look at someone like Jesus, who said, no one takes my life from me, I lay it down. Therefore, I have the power to pick it up. And one of the teachings that he taught was, you know, the Romans were oppressing the Israelites back in the day. And you could be walking down the street and a Roman soldier could come up to you and say, hey, carry my bag. And he said, if that happens, offer to carry their coat too. Why? Because now you're walking with them by choice and not by demand. And so it empowers you when you put yourself in the position to serve, when you put yourself in the position to give, so that you don't feel that people are taking things away from you. You've mastered the situation by placing yourself in it, not being put in it. There's a difference between I have to and I get to.
Yes.
For that, thank you so much for that. Okay, we're about to round up. I do have one last question for you. What's next for you? We want to be on your journey. We want to be on this train of women. We want to be behind you, entourage. We want to be blessed by you some more.
Well, I mean, I'm always working on things. Next year, I'm really excited about next year. I'm going to be doing a writer's workshop, masterclass. So you've asked about that. So that will be coming down the pike, as well as I'll be starting my book clubs again. I've written 2 novels. And this year I took a small group and hosted a book club, and it was so powerful that now I'm really excited about sharing it with more women, because I found that even though they were dramatic novels that women were really ministered to, it unearthed issues that they had been struggling with. It created community because they became transparent and accountable in their issues based on what they were reading in the book. And it was just so powerful that I would like to share more of that with the world. And I'll be doing a relationship masterclass next year as well. So that's why it's really important to log on to my website at michellehammond.com and get on the mailing list so that you can always be a part of my journey, and make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, following me on Instagram and Facebook. Those are the ways to always know what I'm doing, because I'm always posting what's up next.
Great. And I'll definitely make time to share that with everybody off of Zoom. I'll share all that information with all these wonderful women. Thank you so much. Honestly, you've made us all feel powerful. The fact that you have come and taken the time out of your time to be with us all. We are so grateful. And
well, you know what? I count each of these as divine assignments, and I anticipate hearing testimonies, because if we connected, it means that God has something for you to do, and He already knows how powerful you are, and you're on the journey to discover what He already knows about you.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. And I think everybody on here can say amen to that. Okay, so I know you have to rush off now. Thank you once again so much. May God bless you, and may He fill you as you have, released. May He fill you up again more and more and more, in the name of Jesus.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
God bless you. Take care.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Lovely to meet you.
You're welcome. God bless all of you.
God bless you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Were you blessed? Tell me anything that you've learned today. Blessed you. in our chat today.
Sorry, I left and came back, so I'm afraid I missed quite a lot. Hopefully, you've recorded it and you might be able to watch it.
You're relying on that.
If you send the link again, so we might. I wanted to ask you a question, but obviously I picked the tail end of it. It's just to do with the beginning of her video, when she was saying it's almost like a door closes, another one opens, and not to be afraid of making that transition. It's just how to feel encouraged, not to lose courage, because obviously you put up a front that everything is okay, but you have that deep nagging fear that, am I making the right choice? I did want to ask her, but I don't know, what did I miss?
You know what? Some of these questions, if you write them down, we can definitely all talk about it in She Talks this Sunday, and hopefully that will give me and all of us time to kind of do our own research on some of these questions that you're asking.
There was something that she said there that was in response to one of my questions that might also help, and she was saying that peace is a big thing, that if you are wrestling with something and it's not giving you peace, then then that's not where God wants you to be. It's not in that, he doesn't want you to be in that position. But if you're at peace, God is giving you peace. So regardless of what you're seeing around you, God is giving you peace. It could be that he just wants you to know that he's got things in his hands, and he's working things out for your good. So peace is a big thing. I think that's what she was saying to me regarding emotions and knowing what God wants you to do.
Gotcha.
Hope that.
And I think to add to that, because I think with the peace side of things, she kind of mentioned that on the question that I asked as well. One thing she said was that she never gives up. So I think sometimes you just need to battle through it to find that inner peace in what you're doing, because sometimes it might not be straight, and sometimes, and she did mention about Noah and the ark, when he was building the ark, and there was no rain and people were laughing at him. People were saying, what are you doing? There's no rain, there's nothing gonna happen. But no one knew what his purpose was. He knew what he had to do, and he knew what he had heard and what he was meant to do. So therefore, he went ahead and did that. So I think sometimes, in as much as it's hard, and I think that's something that I will take with myself as well, and probably pray about it, because she did mention that. Go to God with it as well. But I think we should learn not to give up so easily, because I think when God says it is not, I'm sure you would know at that point when you try and it's not working, because you would never find that inner peace. So we just have to keep going and see when that peace comes in. And if it doesn't, then of course you know that this is not the direction that God wants me to be on.
Also, can I just ask, I know there's a male in the group today. I just wanted to ask, what is his take on what happened today? Like, what is his perspective as a male with with the chat today?
One's hiding. I'm gonna expose him.
Give us an insight.
We can't leave Kelvin alone.
The only male.
Is that me?
Yes, sir.
From my perspective, yeah, I think I asked the question about how a woman should still demonstrate power, or how she should still feel power when she still needs to submit to her other half. So yeah, I think she answered it well, and it's good how she came from the perspective of God, of always seeking direction of God. And yeah, I think I learned a thing or two from that.
Do you feel powerless?
Sorry?
Do you feel powerless? Because I feel more powerful than you now after
It's
I finished
okay.
hearing all that I've heard.
Okay. Nothing to prove. Take all the power.
No, it was a great session. Has anybody else got anything to say? I don't know who this is. It says Orenkechi. Rebecca, how did you get anything from today's session? No? Well, anyway, guys, I got a lot from this session. I was definitely blessed by it. I'm definitely going to get this book. I have already got the online version that I can read. But it would be great if we all support her by buying her book and sharing all that you learn through that book. Don't just keep it to yourself. Sharing is caring. We need to feed other sisters and brothers and feed ourselves, really. So I will be sharing all the information to be able to access her book on WhatsApp and on Facebook. And hopefully you'll be able to be blessed. You're able to purchase that and be blessed by the book. So I won't take any more of your time. I thank you all. God bless you for joining me tonight. Feel free to join us on Sunday, where we meet at 7 o'clock to a good old chat.
Bye.
We